Ladies and gentlemen, when a woman truly places her trust in God, something shifts in the atmosphere around her. You can see it in her walk. You can hear it in her voice. You can feel it in her presence. Because when a woman stops depending on people and starts depending on God, movement becomes divine. She's no longer moved by what she sees. She's moved by what she believes. A woman who trusts God doesn't chase validation. She carries revelation. She doesn't move to be seen. She moves because she's been sent. Her confidence doesn't come from applause, status, or approval. It comes from knowing that heaven has already signed off on her destiny. When storms rise, she doesn't panic, she prays. When doors close, she doesn't crumble, she waits, because she understands that her delay is not her denial. God's timing is not her punishment, it's her protection. People might look at her and not understand her calm. They might wonder how she's still standing after everything that tried to break her. They don't know the one who's holding her. They don't know that she's been through fire and learned how to glow without burning. They don't know that every tear she cried watered the roots of her faith. A woman who trusts God doesn't need to control the outcome. She knows who controls the outcome. Her peace isn't based on perfect circumstances. It's anchored in a perfect God. She knows that when everything around her seems uncertain, God's promise remains steady. When others complain, she's grateful. When others give up, she presses on. When others walk away, she stands firm because she knows that trusting God means moving even when she doesn't have the full picture. It means obeying even when the plan doesn't make sense. Trusting God doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it looks like tears in the dark. Sometimes it looks like silence when she could speak. Sometimes it looks like faith when there's no evidence. But still, she moves, not because she sees the finish line, but because she knows who called her to run. Her steps are ordered, her heart is guarded, and her faith is grounded. She doesn't need the world's map. She walks by divine direction. Her discernment is her GPS, and her worship is her weapon. So if you ever see a woman walking differently, moving with quiet confidence, unshaken by chaos, and glowing with peace, you're looking at a woman who trusts God. Because her trust doesn't just change her walk, it transforms her world. When a woman decides to trust God completely, everything about the way she moves begins to change. Her steps become steady, her spirit becomes unshakable, and her path becomes purposeful. She no longer walks in circles of confusion because trust straightens her direction. She no longer stumbles over doubt because faith becomes her foundation. Trust doesn't just alter her thoughts, it reshapes her entire movement. Before she trusted God, her movements may have been uncertain, guided by the opinions of people or the pressure of circumstances. She may have depended on validation to feel valuable or waited for someone else to open doors for her. But once she learned to put her faith in God, she realized that divine direction doesn't come from outside approval, it comes from inner conviction. She learned that when she walks with God, she doesn't have to chase opportunities, they begin to find her. Trusting God transforms hesitation into confidence. It teaches her to take steps even when she can't see the full path. The woman who trusts God no longer needs the whole map. She just needs to hear his voice. She moves because she knows that God doesn't reveal the journey all at once. He reveals it step by step, season by season. And in every step, his grace goes before her. There was a time when fear dictated her motion. Every decision was weighed by what could go wrong. Every move was measured by the opinions of others. But now her trust has given her freedom. Fear used to whisper, "What if you fail?" But faith now replies, "What if it works? Because God is with me." That shift in perspective changes how she moves. She's not rushing to prove herself anymore. She's resting in the truth that God's timing is perfect. Trust is not passive, it's power. It's not a feeling of comfort, but a force of direction. When a woman trusts God, her movement becomes more intentional. She doesn't just react to life, she responds with purpose. She understands that not every battle is hers to fight. Not every argument is worth her energy, and not every door is meant for her to walk through. Trust teaches her when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to be silent, when to fight and when to be still. You see, trust doesn't make the journey easier, it makes it clearer. It doesn't remove the storms, but it changes how she stands in them. The woman who trusts God can face the same wind that once broke her and still keep moving forward. She doesn't allow life's disappointments to derail her. She learns how to dance in the rain. Because when she trusts, she understands that every setback is just a setup for something greater. Her movement is no longer about striving, it's about surrendering. Trusting God means letting go of control and letting Him lead. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Because she knows that her own plans are limited, but God's plans are limitless. When she lets go of her need to control outcomes, she gains peace that surpasses understanding. She begins to realize that faith is not about having everything figured out. It's about believing that God already has. Every step she takes now carries weight. Every move she makes echoes with purpose. People around her can sense that something about her is different. It's not pride, it's peace. It's not arrogance, it's assurance. She walks with quiet confidence because she knows her path is ordered. Even when she walks through uncertainty, she carries the certainty of who walks beside her. The woman who trusts God doesn't run ahead of Him anymore. She used to hurry out of fear of missing out, but now she knows she can't miss what's meant for her. She moves at a different pace, a divine pace. She's not moved by pressure, she's moved by purpose. Her speed is no longer determined by comparison. She's no longer racing anyone. Her lane is unique, her assignment is sacred, and her journey is tailored by God Himself. Sometimes trust means walking when you feel weak. Sometimes it means standing still when everything inside you wants to run. Trusting God changes the rhythm of her movement. It's no longer frantic, it's faithful. She's learned that God's delays are not denials, they are designs. When He pauses her progress, it's not punishment, it's preparation. And so she moves differently. She moves gracefully through seasons of transition because she knows who holds tomorrow. She moves humbly through seasons of promotion because she remembers who opened the door. She moves boldly through seasons of warfare because she knows who fights for her. Trust has taught her that every season has a purpose and every movement is sacred when it's guided by God. The woman who trusts God doesn't just walk, she flows. She flows with divine rhythm, carried by peace, guided by purpose, anchored in faith, becomes a living testimony that God is faithful, that obedience opens doors, and that trust transforms everything. Even when the path gets rough, she doesn't retreat. Even when the mountain looks too high, she keeps climbing because her trust tells her, if God brought me this far, He's not about to leave me now. That truth keeps her steady even when everything around her is shaking. Her trust gives her a supernatural stride. She walks through pain but still smiles. She moves through uncertainty but still believes. She advances through opposition but still praises because she understands that trusting God doesn't mean the absence of struggle. It means the presence of strength. When she looks back at her journey, she realizes that trust was the turning point. It was trust that helped her stand when she wanted to fall. It was trust that pushed her forward when fear tried to hold her back. It was trust that changed the way she moved, from anxious to anchored, from restless to rooted, from broken to bold. And now every step she takes declares a message to the world: I trust God. Her movement is no longer motivated by what's around her, but by who is within her. She walks like someone who knows she's covered. She moves like someone who knows she's chosen. She advances like someone who knows the victory is already written. Because when a woman truly trusts God, she doesn't just move differently, she becomes different. Her walk becomes worship. Her movement becomes ministry. Journey becomes a declaration that faith works, that God is good, and that trust changes everything. So watch her. Watch how she moves through the storm and still keeps her head high. Watch how she steps forward when fear tries to whisper, stay still. Watch how she carries grace in her stride and purpose in her posture. That's not just confidence, it's divine trust in motion. A woman who trusts God moves differently because her steps are not ordinary, they are ordered. When God orders your steps, no obstacle can block your progress, no enemy can destroy your purpose, and no circumstance can cancel your calling. Comes a point in every woman's life when she has to decide which voice she will listen to. the voice of panic or the whisper of peace. The voice of panic screams loud, echoing every fear, every what if, every doubt that tries to tear her spirit apart. But the whisper of peace, that still small voice of God within her, tells her, be still, I've got this. A woman who chooses peace over panic doesn't have a problem-free life. She has storms. She has struggles. She has moments when she feels the weight of the world pressing against her chest. Instead of collapsing under that pressure, she breathes. She prays. She releases. She remembers that the same God who carried her through the last battle hasn't changed his mind about her now. Peace is not the absence of trouble. It's the presence of trust. It's that unshakable knowing deep within her that says, even if everything falls apart, God is still holding me together. When the world panics, she stands still. When others crumble under fear, she finds her footing in faith. I challenge you to love enough and care, because peace doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from a perfect God. There was a time when her first response to chaos was panic. When things didn't go as planned, she'd break down. When people betrayed her, she'd fall apart. When doors closed, she'd question her worth. But something changed when she started walking with God. Panic lost its power, because she realized that every closed door was protection, every delay was divine timing, and every disappointment was a redirection. Panic feeds on the illusion of control. It convinces her that she has to fix everything, that she has to hold everyone together, that she has to have all the answers. But peace whispers, you don't have to carry what God has already covered. So she learns to let go. She releases her grip on outcomes because she finally understands that God's plan is better than her pressure. When you see a woman who chooses peace over panic, you'll notice she moves slower, not out of hesitation, but out of trust. She's not rushing to fix things that only God can heal. She's not fighting battles that only faith can win. She's learned that her power is not in panic, it's in presence. Peace is her posture, the way she stands tall, even when her world shakes beneath her feet. The enemy loves panic because panic blinds vision. Panic makes her forget who she is and who God is. But peace restores her sight. Peace reminds her that no matter what she faces, God is greater than what threatens her. So instead of panicking over the unknown, she praises in the unseen. She lifts her hands not because she understands everything, but because she trusts the one who does. Peace is not silence, it's strength. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. A peaceful woman is not passive, she's powerful, because peace allows her to think clearly, act wisely, and love deeply. When panic tries to invade her heart, peace builds a wall of faith around it. When fear knocks, peace answers the door with calm authority, declaring, this heart belongs to God. Peace doesn't mean she never feels afraid, means fear doesn't lead her. It doesn't dictate her decisions. She may still feel uncertainty, but she refuses to bow to it. Peace gives her the courage to walk through chaos without losing her center. Even in moments when everything seems unstable, she remains grounded because her peace isn't built on sand, it's anchored to the rock. When panic says, it's over, peace says, it's just beginning. When panic says, you'll never make it, peace says, you already have the victory. When panic says you're alone, peace says God is right here. That's the difference. Panic reacts, peace responds. Panic speaks from fear, peace speaks from faith. Panic looks at the storm, peace looks at the Savior. And when she chooses peace, she changes the entire atmosphere around her. Her calm becomes contagious. Her stillness silences chaos. Her trust becomes a testimony. There's something powerful about a woman who refuses to panic in a world that thrives on anxiety. Everyone else may be scrolling through worry, drowning in comparison, and suffocating under pressure. But she sits still in the presence of God. She knows that one quiet moment with Him can calm 100 anxious thoughts. Her peace is her protection. It keeps her from overreacting, overthinking, overreaching. It guards her from speaking words in anger or making moves in fear. Peace gives her patience. It teaches her that sometimes silence is strength and waiting is warfare. Because when she waits in peace, God works behind the scenes. When life hits hard, she doesn't lose her mind. She leans on the mind of Christ. When everything seems uncertain, she reminds herself of every time God showed up before. Every miracle every answered prayer, every closed door that led to something better. They all build her confidence that he's not done yet. Peace is her secret weapon. It's how she wins battles without saying a word. It's how she confuses the enemy. Because panic is predictable. Peace is powerful. The enemy expects her to cry, to quit, to break down. But instead, she worships. She lifts her eyes and declares, even now, God is good. That's the kind of peace that doesn't make sense to the world, but it makes perfect sense to heaven. Her peace is not fragile. It's not the kind that breaks under pressure or fades with time. It's the kind that deepens with every trial. Every time she survives what was meant to destroy her, her peace grows stronger. Every time she chooses stillness over striving, her faith grows deeper. She has learned that peace is not something she waits for. It's something she walks in. It's not a mood, it's a mindset. It's a declaration that says, I refuse to be moved by what I see because I know who's with me. So even when life throws unexpected turns, she doesn't let panic drive. She lets peace lead. She's learned that the same God who calms the storm around her can calm the storm within her. And when peace rules her heart, panic loses its grip. Sometimes her peace looks like walking away from drama she used to chase. Sometimes it looks like smiling in silence instead of explaining herself to those who never understand. Sometimes it looks like resting when the world tells her to run. She's discovered that peace is not found in doing more. It's found in trusting more. Peace over panic is not a one-time choice. It's a daily decision. Every morning she wakes up and decides, today I will not be moved by fear. I will not let panic rule my emotions. I will walk in peace because the God of peace walks with me. And that decision changes everything. It changes her tone, posture, her presence. It changes how she faces challenges, how she loves people, how she handles pressure. She becomes a walking sanctuary, calm in chaos, light in darkness, stability in storm. Because peace is not just what she feels, it's who she's become. And once you've tasted that kind of peace, the peace that passes all understanding, panic will never feel like home again. So she chooses peace again and again. And every time she does, heaven moves on her behalf. Because a woman who chooses peace over panic doesn't just survive. She transforms. She turns every trial into testimony, every burden into blessing, and every storm into a stage where God's glory shines through her calm. Every woman of faith, some point in her journey, must learn the sacred truth that delay is not denial. It's one of the hardest lessons to embrace, yet one of the most transformative. Because when you are waiting, when everything seems still, when your prayers hang in the air unanswered, that's not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's a sign that He's working on something bigger than you can imagine. Delay is not punishment, it's preparation. It's the space between where you are and where God is taking you. And in that space, He's not just changing your circumstances, He's changing you. You see, sometimes God holds back what you want because He's building you for what you need. He's strengthening your faith, refining your character, positioning your heart for greater purpose. When a woman truly grasps that delay is not denial, her waiting becomes different. She doesn't wait with frustration, she waits with faith. She doesn't wait with bitterness, she waits with belief. Because she understands that God's not yet is not the same as no. It's simply His way of saying, I have something better. It's not time yet. Waiting is never easy. The silence can feel like rejection. The stillness can feel like distance. But in reality, the delay is where God does His deepest work. It's where He separates the temporary from the eternal, the good from the great, and your will from His perfect plan. When He delays, He's not denying you, He's protecting you. He's holding back the very thing you think you need because He knows it could destroy you if you got it too soon. A woman who understands this truth stops trying to force doors open that God has intentionally closed. She stops running after things that require her to compromise her peace. She stops begging for what isn't aligned with her destiny. Instead, she learns how to wait well. She learns how to worship while she waits, how to grow while she waits, how to stay faithful when nothing seems to move. She learns that delay is not a pause in purpose, it is purpose. Because while she's waiting, she's being molded. While she's waiting, she's being pruned. While she's waiting, she's learning to rely not on her own strength, but on the one who never fails. There are seasons when it feels like everyone else is moving forward and you're stuck in the same place. You see others receiving what you've been praying for, and it stirs questions in your heart. Why not me? When is it my turn? But don't be deceived by the appearance of movement. God's timing is tailor-made for each of his daughters. What's happening for them is preparation for them, and what's delayed for you is being designed for you. Delay is not a sign of disfavor. It's a sign of divine strategy, because if you get what you've prayed for before you're ready, it will overwhelm you instead of empower you. The delay is where God fortifies your spirit so you can carry the blessing without breaking beneath its weight. When a woman trusts that, she stops panicking in the waiting room of life. She learns how to rest even when she's ready to run. She learns that the same God who promised is also the one who performs, but he does so in his perfect timing. She doesn't need to chase the promise. She just needs to stay positioned. The waiting season is not wasted. It's sacred ground. It's where roots grow deep. It's where you learn to depend on God more than outcomes. It's where your praise matures from thank you for what you've done to thank you for what you're still doing. It's where your faith stops being about what you can see and becomes about who you know God to be. Delay has a way of revealing your foundation. When things don't happen fast, you find out if your faith was built on excitement or endurance. A woman who has been through delay learns how to endure. She learns how to trust without evidence, how to believe without proof, how to love God even when he's silent. That kind of trust can't be taught. It has to be lived. She begins to understand that what looks like a setback is often a setup. God is aligning people, preparing places, arranging moments behind the scenes that she doesn't even know about. While she's praying for the door to open, God is making sure the floor is strong enough to hold her when she walks through it. Delay forces her to see that not everything good is God-timed. Some opportunities look golden, but they're not divine. Some relationships look right, but they're not righteous. That's why delay is mercy. It's heaven's way of saying, not yet, because I love you too much to give you less than my best. When she looks back on her life, she realizes that what she once called delays were actually blessings in disguise. The job she didn't get made room for a better calling. The relationship that ended created space for healing. The season she thought was wasted was actually where God prepared her for the platform she now stands on. Delay is not God withholding, it's God arranging. It's him shifting things into perfect alignment. Because when his timing comes, everything fits together effortlessly. Doors open without force. Opportunities flow without striving. Blessings arrive without chaos. And when it happens, she understands why she had to wait. She realizes that if it had come earlier, she would have mishandled it, misunderstood it, or missed the miracle entirely. Waiting with trust turns delay into divine training. It sharpens her discernment. It humbles her heart. It teaches her how to pray not just for what she wants, for what aligns with heaven's will. And that kind of prayer has power, because when her desires align with God's design, delay turns into destiny. So now she no longer fears the waiting season. She doesn't mistake silence for absence. She doesn't mistake stillness for stagnation. She knows that even when she can't see it, God is working. Even when she doesn't feel it, God is moving. Even when nothing changes in her timeline, everything is shifting in his. Her faith matures to a place where she can say, Lord, if you're delaying it, I trust you. If you're closing this door, if you're taking your time, I'll take mine too, because I know what you're preparing is worth the wait. That's the kind of woman who no longer breaks in the waiting. She builds in the waiting. She prays, she grows, she prepares, she believes, because she knows the delay doesn't change the promise. It just prepares her for its fulfillment. When the promise finally arrives, she doesn't just receive it. She stewards it with gratitude. She carries it with humility because she remembers what it cost to wait for it. She understands that what she has now was worth every tear, every prayer, every lonely night of wondering when, because now she knows delay was never denial, it was development. It was destiny disguised as delay. It was God's way of saying, I love you too much to give it to you before you're ready. What's for her will find her. Promised will come to pass. And when it does, she'll look back at every waiting season and whisper, now I see, Lord. You were never late. You were preparing me all along. There comes a moment in every woman's walk with God when she must decide which will lead her, faith or feelings. Feelings change like the wind. They rise and fall with the tides of circumstance, but faith, real faith, stands unshaken through every storm. A woman who chooses faith over feelings doesn't ignore her emotions. She just refuses to let them have the final say. Feelings are powerful. They are not always truthful. They tell her she's alone when God says, I will never leave you. They tell her she's not enough when God calls her chosen, loved, and worthy. Feelings can whisper fear into her heart. Faith speaks louder. Faith says, even if I can't see it, I still believe it. Faith over feelings means walking when you don't feel like walking. I challenge you to love enough, praying when you don't feel like praying, praising when you don't feel like worshiping. It means trusting God even when every emotion inside of you wants to give up. Because faith doesn't need evidence, it needs endurance. Faith doesn't rely on how things look, it relies on who God is. There was a time when she let her emotions drive her decisions. When she was hurt, she ran. When she was afraid, she hid. When she was disappointed, she quit. But as she grew in God, she learned that feelings are fleeting while faith is forever. She realized that her emotions could no longer be her compass. They could be acknowledged, but they couldn't be allowed to steer. Faith teaches her to rise above how she feels. It whispers to her heart, you may not feel strong, but you are. You may not feel ready, but you're equipped. You may not feel seen, but you're known by God. Faith steadies her when her feelings try to shake her. It anchors her in truth when emotions try to toss her into confusion. When a woman walks by faith, her movements shift. She doesn't wait for her feelings to align before she obeys. She moves first, and peace follows. She gives even when she feels empty. She forgives even when it hurts. She keeps showing up because she knows that obedience opens doors that emotion can never unlock. Feelings say, it's too hard. Faith says, with God, all things are possible. Feelings say, you can't handle this. Faith says, God is my strength. Feelings say, this is the end. Faith says, this is just the beginning. A woman of faith understands that life is not always about what she feels. It's about what she knows. And she knows that God is faithful. She knows that he keeps his promises. She knows that even when her heart aches, his hand still holds her. That's what keeps her standing when everything else around her is shaking. Faith over feelings is not easy. It's not glamorous. It's not instant. It's forged in the middle of midnight prayers and silent tears. It's built in the spaces where nothing makes sense. It's formed in the tension between what she feels and what she believes. But over time, faith becomes her foundation, unshakable, immovable, unbreakable. She learns to speak faith over her feelings. When fear whispers, you're not enough, she declares, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. When loneliness creeps in, she says, God is near to the brokenhearted. When doubt tries to convince her that she's forgotten, she reminds herself, he who began a good work in me will finish it. Faith doesn't deny reality, it defines it. It says, yes, the storm is real, but so is my Savior. It says, yes, I feel weak, but his strength is made perfect in my weakness. It says, yes, the pain is deep. His grace runs deeper. The woman who lives by faith doesn't allow her temporary feelings to sabotage her eternal future. She's learned that emotions come and go, but God's word remains forever. So she builds her life on what doesn't change, his promises, his truth, his faithfulness. And when she stands on that, she can't be moved by every emotional wave that tries to knock her down. There will be days when her feelings are loud, days when disappointment screams, when fear shouts, when sadness tries to drown her peace. But even then, she chooses faith. She whispers, God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. That's the sound of faith rising above feelings. That's the sound of strength being born in surrender. Sometimes faith over feelings means sitting in silence, waiting for God's answer instead of forcing her own. Sometimes it means forgiving when she still feels wounded. Sometimes it means holding her tongue when she wants to fight back. Faith gives her discipline when feelings want to dictate. Faith gives her focus when emotions try to distract. She learns that maturity in God is not about never feeling afraid or sad. It's about not letting those feelings control her. It's about saying, yes, I feel the fear, but I'm still going. Yes, I feel the pain, but I'm still trusting. Yes, I feel uncertain. I know who holds tomorrow. That's what makes her unstoppable. Faith doesn't silence her feelings. It sanctifies them, teaches her to bring her emotions to God, not to her flesh. She doesn't suppress what she feels. She surrenders it. She cries when she needs to. She doesn't stay there. She brings her tears to the throne, not to the pit, because she knows that her feelings are temporary visitors. Faith is her permanent home. And as she keeps choosing faith over feelings, something beautiful happens. Her emotions begin to align with her faith. Peace replaces panic. Hope replaces despair. Joy returns where sadness once ruled. Because when you feed your faith, your feelings eventually follow. She learns that faith is not about feeling strong every day. It's about knowing that God is strong every day. It's not about feeling confident. It's about walking confidently in His Word. It's not about feeling loved. It's about believing that she is loved, even when she feels unworthy. Faith becomes her lens, her filter, her way of seeing life. When storms rise, she doesn't let fear dictate her steps. She lets faith determine her response. Everything looks uncertain. She declares that God is still in control. When her emotions pull her toward worry, faith pulls her back toward worship. Faith teaches her that her feelings are valid, but they're not final. They're a part of her humanity, but they're not the master of her destiny. Her faith decides how she grows and who she becomes. She's no longer swayed by every emotional storm because her anchor is fixed. She no longer doubts God's timing because she knows His heart. And even when she doesn't feel His presence, she believes His promise that He is always with her. And so she walks, sometimes trembling, but always trusting. She speaks life when she feels empty. She chooses hope when she feels helpless. She gives love even when she feels overlooked. Because faith is not about how she feels, it's about who she knows God to be. Faith over feelings is her declaration, her daily choice, her defining power. It's what allows her to walk through heartbreak without losing heart. It's what empowers her to praise in the dark before the dawn comes. It's what reminds her that God's truth outweighs her temporary emotions. Every time she chooses faith over feelings, she grows stronger. Her steps become steadier, her heart becomes freer, her peace becomes deeper. She becomes the kind of woman who is no longer controlled by what she feels, but guided by what she knows. Because feelings fluctuate, but faith remains. Feelings fade, but faith endures. Feelings change with circumstance, but faith stands firm on the unchanging Word of God. And that's why she's different. That's why she walks with grace, speaks with authority, and lives with peace. Because she's not moved by feelings, she's moved by faith. So even on the days when her emotions wage war, she chooses to believe. Even when her heart is heavy, she lifts her hands and says, God, I trust you. Because she knows that her feelings may fail her, but her faith never will. There is a kind of confidence that no mirror can reflect and no stage can manufacture. It doesn't come from applause, success, or appearance. It comes from within, from the still, sacred place where a woman meets her Creator. That confidence is not pride, it's peace. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's not born from who she is, it's born from who God is in her. That's what we call divine confidence. When a woman operates in divine confidence, she walks differently. Her steps carry a quiet power, her words carry weight. Presence commands attention. Not because she's loud, but because she's anchored. There's a glow about her that cannot be dimmed, a strength that cannot be shaken, and a calm that cannot be explained. She doesn't have to announce who she is because her peace already speaks for her. You see, divine confidence isn't about thinking less of yourself or more of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself through God's perspective. It's about knowing that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that your value was established before your birth. Your worth isn't determined by your wins or losses, but by His word. Divine confidence is built on the understanding that you don't have to perform for love when you were created by love. The woman who walks in divine confidence has learned that validation is a poor substitute for identity. She's no longer chasing approval because she already knows she's approved by God. She doesn't need the crowd's affirmation to feel significant because she already carries heaven's confirmation. She understands that people may overlook her, but God never will. And that realization shifts everything about how she moves. There was a time when her worth was tangled up in what she could produce, how much she did, how well she performed, how perfect she appeared. But divine confidence taught her that she's valuable even in her stillness. She's powerful even in her silence. She's enough even when she's not doing anything extraordinary. Divine confidence doesn't need to prove. It simply is. This kind of confidence can't be shaken by circumstances. When life throws storms her way, she doesn't crumble because her confidence isn't in the boat. It's in the one who commands the waves. She doesn't panic when doors close because she knows that every no from man is simply a redirection from God. She understands that rejection is protection. Delay is often divine preparation. Divine confidence whispers to her in the dark, "You are still chosen." It reminds her when she fails that grace didn't expire. It assures her when she feels unseen that God is still working behind the scenes. It tells her when she feels unqualified that God specializes in using the least likely to do the most extraordinary. Divine confidence is not loud, it's unbreakable. This woman no longer walks into rooms hoping to be accepted. She walks in knowing she belongs there, not because of who she is, because of who sent her. Her presence is not arrogance, it's assignment. Her calm is not indifference, it's confidence in divine timing. She knows that when she moves with God, she moves with purpose. There's something powerful about a woman who knows who she is in God. She doesn't compete, she completes. She doesn't compare, she complements. She doesn't shrink herself to fit the comfort of others because she understands that her light was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to shine. She knows that her confidence doesn't intimidate the humble. It inspires them. Divine confidence is rooted in surrender. It's not built on ego, it's built on trust. It says, I don't know how God will do it. I know He will. It says, even when I don't feel qualified, I know I'm called. It says, I don't need to understand the plan to walk in obedience. That kind of confidence isn't shaken by uncertainty. It's strengthened by it. You see, confidence was built on herself. Every failure felt final. Every setback felt like the end. But when her confidence shifted to God, she learned that failure is not fatal. It's formative. It's how God molds her character, deepens her faith, and strengthens her resilience. Divine confidence doesn't avoid struggle. It endures it with grace. A woman with divine confidence knows that she's not her past, not her pain, not her mistakes. She carries lessons but leaves behind labels. She's learned that no weapon formed against her can prosper, not because she's untouchable, but because she's covered. She's not confident in herself. She's confident through herself because God lives within her. And when God lives in you, you start walking with a different kind of assurance. You stop apologizing for being who you were created to be. You stop questioning your worth when people misunderstand your mission. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. Divine confidence teaches you to be unapologetically authentic because pretending is exhausting, but purpose is empowering. This kind of confidence doesn't boast, it blesses. It doesn't tear others down, it lifts them up. Confident woman doesn't need to compete. She celebrates others because she knows that no one else can take what's hers. Divine confidence teaches her that someone else's success doesn't threaten her. It confirms that God is still in the blessing business. Even in seasons of uncertainty, divine confidence steadies her soul. When the future looks unclear, she reminds herself that God has already gone before her. People leave, she doesn't lose herself because she knows that the same God who removed them will replace them with better. When she feels weak, she remembers that his strength is made perfect in her weakness. Divine confidence isn't a look, it's a lifestyle. It's how she wakes up every morning, puts on peace instead of pressure, and faces the day with faith instead of fear. It's how she carries herself when no one's watching, how she speaks when she could stay silent, how she forgives even when it hurts. Because divine confidence is not built on emotion, it's built on eternal truth. She's chosen, she's capable, she's covered, and she's called. Divine confidence doesn't mean she never doubts. It means she doesn't live in doubt. It means she questions without quitting, she wonders without wandering, and she walks by faith even when she can't see the road ahead. Her confidence is contagious. People feel safer, stronger, and more inspired when she's around, not because she has all the answers, because she carries peace that surpasses understanding. She's learned that when God is your source, you never run dry. When He's your anchor, no storm can sink you. And when He's your foundation, no failure can destroy you. That's divine confidence. It's not loud, but it's lasting. It's not flashy, but it's firm. It's not about control, it's about trust. The woman who walks in divine confidence doesn't chase recognition. She attracts purpose. She doesn't crumble under pressure. She stands taller in it. She doesn't fear what's ahead. She trusts who's ahead. So if you see her walking differently, it's because she knows who's walking with her. If you hear her speaking with strength, it's because she's been spoken over by God Himself. And if you sense peace when she enters a room, it's because divine confidence has become her atmosphere. That's not pride, that's power. That's not ego, that's elevation. That's not self-centered, that's spirit-led. Because when a woman discovers divine confidence, she stops trying to prove herself and starts walking in purpose. She stops fighting for validation and starts standing in victory. She stops asking, am I enough? And starts declaring, through God, I am more than enough. There is a level of maturity and faith that only comes when you obey God without needing to understand every detail. It's the kind of obedience that doesn't wait for a full explanation before saying yes. It's the type of trust that moves when God says move, even when the destination is unclear. Obedience without explanation is not weakness, it's worship. It's not blind, it's built on vision that only faith can see. When a woman reaches that place, she begins to walk in a rhythm that looks strange to the world. Her choices don't always make sense to people, but they make perfect sense in heaven. She doesn't argue with divine instruction, she aligns with it. She doesn't need all the answers because she knows, who gave the command. She has learned that obedience isn't about understanding the plan, it's about trusting the planner. There was a time when she needed to know why. She questioned every season, every delay, every door that closed. She wondered why God would lead her into situations that didn't make sense. But over time, through pain and prayer, she discovered that God doesn't owe her explanations. He offers revelation, and revelation often comes after obedience, not before it. When she said yes to God, she didn't always know what she was walking into, but she knew who was walking with her. And that's what gave her peace. Because obedience is not about certainty, it's about surrender. It's about laying down your own understanding and saying, even when I don't see it, I still believe. Obedience without explanation requires a heart that's anchored in trust. It means saying yes when your emotions say no. It means following divine direction when logic can't comprehend it. It means walking by faith and not by sight, not because you're fearless, because your faith outweighs your fear. There are moments in life when God will ask you to move before you're ready. He will call you to leave what's familiar and step into what's uncertain. He will whisper, go, when every part of you wants to stay. In those moments, obedience becomes the ultimate act of worship. It says, God, I may not understand your ways. I trust your heart. That's the kind of obedience that produces miracles. It's the same obedience that made Abraham leave his homeland without a map. It's the obedience that made Noah build an ark before there was rain. It's the obedience that made Mary say yes to carrying something she didn't conceive, but was chosen to deliver. Every great move of God in Scripture began with someone who obeyed without needing an explanation. And today, same call rests on the woman who is ready to walk in divine purpose. God is not asking her to figure it out. He's asking her to trust Him through it. Because when she obeys, she positions herself for blessings that can't be earned by effort. They can only be unlocked through surrender. Obedience without explanation often feels lonely. People will question your choices, mock your faith, and misunderstand your silence. They'll ask, "Why are you doing this?" And sometimes you won't even have words to explain it. But that's the beauty of obedience. It doesn't always come with clarity. It comes with conviction. You don't need to justify your obedience to people who weren't part of the conversation between you and God. There's a strength that rises in a woman when she stops seeking understanding from everyone else and starts listening for divine direction. She stops needing confirmation from others because she knows she already has revelation from God. Her obedience becomes her evidence that she trusts Him. Her life becomes the proof that faith still works. And make no mistake, obedience will always cost something. It may cost comfort. It may cost relationships. It may cost opportunities that look good but aren't God. But what you gain through obedience far outweighs what you lose. You gain peace. You gain alignment. You gain the kind of divine favor that can't be manufactured by human hands. Obedience without explanation often leads to blessings without limitation. Because when you prove to God that you can follow without seeing, He begins to trust you with more. He begins to reveal deeper things, open greater doors, and release higher assignments. You start walking in a realm where your yes carries weight in heaven. Who obeys without needing to understand has learned the rhythm of divine timing. She doesn't rush what God is still preparing, and she doesn't delay what He's already commanded. She understands that delayed obedience is still disobedience. So when God says move, she moves even when the path looks uncertain. When He says she waits, even when waiting feels like wasting. This type of obedience requires dying to pride, because pride demands answers, but humility says, "I trust you, Lord." Pride wants proof, but faith says, "Your word is enough." Pride wants to be in control, but obedience says, "Take the wheel, God, I'll follow." There's something powerful about a woman who stops fighting for control and starts walking in surrender. She's not driven by fear of failure anymore. She's driven by the desire to please God. She's not moved by how things appear. She's anchored in what God has promised. That kind of obedience turns ordinary steps into divine direction. Obedience without explanation also reveals what's truly in your heart, because obedience is not proven by words, it's proven by actions. It's easy to say, "God, I trust you," until He asks you to give up something that means everything. It's easy to say, "God, use me," until He leads you down a path that doesn't look like success. That's where true obedience is forged, in the tension between what you want and what He wills. And when you finally reach that place of surrender, something shifts inside you. You stop trying to make sense of everything. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Use me." You stop wrestling with the unknown and start resting in the unseen hand of God. That's when peace replaces panic. That's when stillness replaces striving, because once you've tasted the fruit of obedience, you'll never want to go back to living by logic. Logic limits, obedience liberates. Logic tries to control outcomes, but obedience releases overflow. The woman who walks in obedience without explanation walks in supernatural rhythm. She moves when God says move, even if her knees are trembling. She steps out when others hesitate, because she knows delayed obedience can close divine doors. She doesn't need to see the full picture. She trusts the artist. She doesn't need to understand every chapter. She trusts the author. And as she walks, she begins to see what others can't. She begins to experience breakthroughs that others only dream of. Her obedience becomes the bridge between where she was and where God has taken her. Her willingness to say yes without knowing how becomes the seed of every miracle that follows. When people ask how she made it through seasons of uncertainty, she simply smiles and says, "I just obeyed." Not because she was fearless, but because she was faithful. Not because she had all the answers, because she had the right attitude, obedience. So when you find yourself in a place where God is calling you to do something that doesn't make sense, remember this: obedience precedes understanding. You may not understand it now, but you'll thank Him later. You may not see the full picture. One day you'll realize every yes you gave Him built the foundation for the blessings you're standing in. Obedience without explanation is the highest form of trust. It's the language of faith and the posture of surrender. It's saying, God, I'll go even if I don't know where this leads. And when you live that way, your life becomes a living testimony that obedience opens doors explanation never could. Because the woman who obeys without explanation doesn't just walk by faith, she walks in power. Her steps are ordered, her peace is anchored, and her future is secure. And through her obedience, generations will be changed, destinies will be unlocked, and the glory of God will be revealed. There is something unbreakable about a woman who refuses to give up, even when life gives her every reason to. She carries a quiet strength, a fire that doesn't fade even in the coldest seasons, and a faith that holds her together when everything else falls apart. That's what we call a resilient spirit. It's not the absence of struggle. It's the power to rise again, again, and again. A resilient spirit is not born in comfort. It's forged in adversity. It's shaped in the darkness, molded in the storm, and strengthened through pain. The woman who possesses it has walked through valleys most people would have avoided. She's faced disappointments that could have destroyed her. She's cried tears that no one saw, fought battles that no one knew about, and still showed up with grace and strength. Because resilience doesn't mean she hasn't been broken. It means she refused to stay that way. Every scar she carries tells a story of survival. Every bruise has become a badge of honor. Every wound has become a well of wisdom. Life tried to take her out, but grace kept her standing. She learned that strength isn't the absence of struggle, it's the ability to smile while walking through it. A resilient spirit doesn't ask, why me? It declares, try me. Because she knows that whatever was meant to destroy her only built her. She's learned that resilience is not about pretending to be strong. It's about allowing God to strengthen you when you feel weak. It's not about faking a smile. It's about finding peace in the midst of pain. It's not about denying what hurt you. It's about deciding that it won't define you. That's the power of a resilient spirit. It transforms pain into purpose and wounds into wisdom. There were seasons when she thought she wouldn't make it. Nights when she cried herself to sleep. Mornings when she wanted to quit. Days when her faith felt faint. But she kept moving. Not because she had all the answers, but because something deep inside her whispered, keep going. That whisper wasn't just strength, it was divine resilience. Resilience is the echo of God's breath within her saying, you can rise again. It's the reminder that even when she's on her knees, she's still in position to pray. It's the conviction that even when she's tired, she's still chosen. And when she gets back up, she doesn't rise the same. She rises wiser, stronger, dangerous to the darkness that tried to break her. A resilient spirit doesn't run from pain, it transforms it. She's learned how to use heartbreak as fuel, how to turn rejection into redirection, and how to make her pain pay her back. She no longer looks at her trials as punishment, but as preparation. She understands that pressure doesn't crush diamonds, it creates them. And she's becoming a diamond forged in divine fire. Life has tried to silence her, but her spirit learned to sing louder. The more storms she's faced, more she's discovered that storms don't last, but strength does. When others expected her to crumble, she rebuilt. When they thought she was finished, she was only being refined. When she lost what she thought she couldn't live without, she found that what remained was enough. Her resilience didn't come from the world, it came from God. It's not just inner strength, it's divine empowerment. It's knowing that even when everything falls apart, God is still holding the pieces. That's why she doesn't fear the breaking anymore, because she's seen how God uses broken things beautifully. He took her broken heart and turned it into compassion. He took her broken plans and gave her purpose. He took her broken spirit and rebuilt it into something unshakable. The woman with a resilient spirit walks differently. Calm confidence in her stride. She's not moved by chaos anymore because she's been through worse and survived. She doesn't respond to every battle because she's learned that not every fight deserves her energy. She's selective with her peace now. She's protective of her joy because resilience has taught her that her energy is sacred and her purpose too important to be wasted on what doesn't matter. She's not bitter about her past. She's better because of it. Every loss taught her a lesson. Every delay built her discipline. Every heartbreak deepened her empathy. She no longer resents what hurt her because it grew her. That's the miracle of resilience. It turns pain into progress. It turns what was meant for harm into something holy. When people look at her now, they see strength, but they don't always see the story behind it. They don't see the nights of crying out to God, the prayers whispered through tears, the moments when she almost gave up. But that's okay, because her strength speaks louder than her struggle ever could. She's living proof that what was meant to break her only built her faith. A resilient spirit knows that life won't always be easy. It will always be worth it. It knows that setbacks are setups for comebacks. Knows that sometimes God allows the breaking so he can rebuild her on a stronger foundation. Knows that victory isn't about never falling. It's about always rising. And every time she rises, she carries more power. Same hands that once wiped tears now lift others. The same voice that once trembled now encourages the broken. The same heart that once bled now beats with purpose. She has become the very encouragement she once needed. That's what resilience does. It turns survivors into healers. Her resilience is not loud, but it's undeniable. It's in the way she keeps loving after betrayal. It's in the way she keeps believing after disappointment. It's in the way she keeps forgiving, even when forgiveness feels unfair, because she knows that resentment is heavy, but resilience is light. She chooses to let go, not because it's easy, but because peace is priceless. A resilient woman doesn't need a perfect life. She just needs a faithful God. And because she knows he's faithful, she doesn't fear the future anymore. She's seen him bring beauty from ashes too many times to doubt him now. She knows that every trial is temporary, but every lesson eternal. She understands that the breaking is never the end. It's the beginning of becoming. When people ask her how, she keeps going. She doesn't point to her strength, she points to her source. Because she knows that the same God who sustained her yesterday will carry her tomorrow. That's the heartbeat of a resilient spirit, dependence on divine strength. And so she keeps moving forward. Her faith might shake, but it never shatters. Her hope might flicker, but it never goes out. Her spirit might bend, but it will not break. She's built for this. Every tear was training. Every test was teaching her how to stand tall. Every valley was preparing her for the mountaintop. The woman with a resilient spirit doesn't just survive, she thrives. She doesn't just endure, she evolves. She doesn't just get through it, she grows through it. Her strength becomes her story, her scars become her testimony, and her life becomes a declaration that grace is greater than grief. That's the beauty of a resilient spirit. It refuses to be defined by defeat. It refuses to stay down. It refuses to surrender to sorrow. Instead, it rises, rebuilds, and rejoices, because deep down, she knows that no matter how many times she falls, she's never truly alone. God is in her comeback. He's in her strength. He's in her story. And every time she rises, she reminds the world that you can't keep down a woman who's held up by heaven. That's what resilience looks like. It's faith wearing scars like armor, hope that keeps breathing after heartbreak, grace that keeps glowing after the fire. A resilient spirit doesn't just survive the storm, it learns how to dance in the rain. Because she knows this truth, the same God who allowed the storm is the same God who will bring her safely through it. And when she comes out on the other side, she won't just be standing, she'll be shining. There is something sacred about the presence of a woman who has been transformed by grace. You can feel it before she even speaks. The atmosphere shifts when she enters a room, not because she seeks attention, because she carries something divine within her. Her spirit is no longer restless, it's rooted. Her energy doesn't demand, it draws. Her words don't wound, they heal. That is the power of a transformative presence. A transformative presence is not built overnight. It is the result of seasons of surrender, moments of breaking, and years of divine refining. It's born from the woman who has wrestled with her pain and found purpose in it. It's carried by the woman who has walked through fire and discovered she was never consumed. It's seen in the woman who has wept in silence, prayed through her pain, and come out with peace that doesn't make sense. Her transformation wasn't pretty. It wasn't quick. It wasn't convenient. It was messy, painful, and private. There were days when she questioned everything, her worth, her calling, her strength. There were nights when she didn't know if she would make it. But in that dark place, something sacred happened. She encountered God, not in her perfection, in her brokenness. And that encounter changed her from the inside out. Transformation is not just a change of circumstances, it's a change of character. It's not about looking different on the outside, it's about becoming different on the inside. And when that kind of transformation takes place, it can't help but be seen, felt, and experienced by everyone around her. That's why her presence now carries peace, because she's lived through chaos. That's why she offers grace so freely, because she knows what it feels like to need it. That's why she listens deeply, because she remembers when she just needed someone to understand. A transformative presence is not loud. It doesn't have to announce itself. It doesn't need validation or attention. It simply is. It's powerful because it's authentic. It's healing because it's honest. It's magnetic because it's real. When she speaks, people don't just hear her. They feel her. Because her words aren't empty. They're birthed from experience. They carry the weight of revelation and the fragrance of redemption. This woman doesn't just walk into spaces, she changes them. Not through force, but through grace. She carries light into dark places, hope into hopeless hearts, and calm into chaotic situations. When she walks into a room, peace follows. When she speaks, wisdom flows. When she prays, atmospheres shift, because she's not operating in her own strength anymore. She's walking in divine alignment. You can't have a transformative presence without first going through transformation. And transformation requires fire. It requires surrender. It requires allowing God to remove everything that doesn't reflect Him. It means letting go of who you thought you were so He can reveal who you were always meant to be. It means dying to ego, pride, and fear so that faith, humility, and peace can rise. The woman who carries a transformative presence has been through enough to know that God wastes nothing. Every betrayal taught her how to discern. Every loss taught her how to lean on God. Every delay taught her patience. Every disappointment taught her dependence. And now she moves differently, not with anxiety, but with assurance, not with fear, but with faith, not with panic, but with presence. There's a stillness about her now. Not the stillness of inactivity, but the stillness of inner peace. She's learned how to rest in God's timing. She no longer chases what isn't meant for her. She no longer begs for doors that have been divinely closed. She understands that when something leaves her life, it's because something greater is on the way. That wisdom gives her presence power. She doesn't have to fight for peace anymore. She's become it. Presence is her ministry. She doesn't have to preach to make an impact. The way she lives, loves, forgives, and carries herself is the message. People feel comfort around her because she carries compassion. They feel encouraged because she embodies faith. They feel inspired because her life is proof that transformation is possible. She once sought validation from others, but now she seeks alignment with God. She once needed recognition, but now she prefers reflection, seeing God's glory in her growth. Her priorities have shifted from pleasing people to pleasing heaven. That's what transformation does. It changes what matters most, changes how she spends her time, who she gives her energy to, and how she responds to pain. Before transformation, she reacted. Now she responds. Before, she spoke out of emotion. Now she speaks from wisdom. Before, she sought control. Now she seeks surrender. That shift is what gives her presence weight, because she's not driven by fear or insecurity anymore. She's led by faith and discernment. Transformative presence doesn't mean she never struggles. It means she doesn't stay stuck. It doesn't mean she never cries. It means she's learned how to let her tears water her growth. It doesn't mean she never gets tired. It means she's learned where to draw her. She knows when to retreat and when to rise, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to fight and when to be still. And when she stands in a room, people sense that she's not standing alone. There's something divine surrounding her, peace, power, and presence. Her energy feels like rest. Her spirit feels like hope. Her presence feels like healing. That's what happens when you've been transformed by God. You begin to reflect Him without even trying. She no longer needs to prove who she is. She doesn't need to convince anyone of her worth. Transformation has taught her that her identity was never in what she did. It was always in who she belongs to. That revelation brings confidence that can't be shaken by criticism, rejection, or comparison. Her confidence isn't self-made, it's God-given. Presence carries freedom because she's been freed. She doesn't carry the weight of bitterness anymore. She doesn't hold on to the offense. She's learned that unforgiveness poisons the soul and blocks the flow of grace. So she forgives, not because it's easy, because she values her peace more than her pain, and that forgiveness becomes part of her fragrance. It's what makes her presence healing to others. Transformation made her sensitive, but not weak. It made her soft, but not small. It made her wise, but not weary. It made her aware of the power she carries, not the kind that controls, but the kind that comforts. Not the kind that demands, but the kind that delivers. Transformative presence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from process. She's been through it. She's felt the sting of loss, the weight of waiting, the ache of disappointment. But she's also tasted redemption, seen restoration, and experienced renewal. And now she carries all of that within her. She walks with history, but she also walks with destiny. When she speaks from experience. But she also speaks with anointing. When she prays, heaven listens, because her life proof that when God transforms a woman, He uses her as a vessel to transform others. She's not the same woman she once was. The old her reacted in fear. The new her moves in faith. The old her was broken by pain. The new her builds from purpose. The old her sought approval. The new her walks in divine assignment. That's the beauty of transformation. It replaces striving with stillness and fear with faith. Now her presence carries power, not because of who she is, but because of who she's become in God. She's a walking reflection of His grace, a living testimony of His mercy, and a vessel of His peace. Her life says what words cannot. God can change anyone, heal anything, and restore everything. That's what makes her presence transformative. It's not just her aura, her voice, or her strength. It's the divine light shining through her story. It's the evidence that transformation is real. It's the quiet authority of someone who has been through the storm, met God in the middle of it, and came out carrying peace.